Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from the capital of Northern British Columbia, Prince George. A beautiful day in Prince George, midsummer, and Prince George, amazing place actually for those that visit BC from around the world. If you come here, not only Vancouver, Victoria, go to Northern BC, it is amazing. And today we have a special guest. His name is Jonathan. I have always a little bit difficulty with his last name, so I'm going to try it. Valoroso.
Nailed it.
Nailed it, okay. Welcome on the show, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me.
So we have known each other for quite a while. I think I first got to meet you in 2018 or so, and you were then, and still are, working for Shaw.
Yep.
And as a technician, then?
When I started with Shaw, I was actually, I started as a warehouse technician, so I was like pretty low in the ladder, but now I'm currently a producer for Shaw Spotlight, which is another part of the company.
Yeah, so the producer. And so let me, just a little bit more about you. Are you from the area here, or how did you end up in Prince George? Or where you,
Actually, I wasn't born here. I was born in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay.
That's where I was born and raised and lived most of my life.
Okay.
And then, of course, like most people would do, they met somebody, and then I moved to Prince George to be with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I found my way here.
Yeah, and how did you get involved in television? Or did you kind of selected that as your career, or did it just kind of happen that way?
It definitely just happened. I've always been interested in filmmaking.
Yeah.
Just getting into that industry, getting behind the camera.
Yeah.
But growing up in Calgary, I lived I would say a pretty modest life. Like, I didn't have a ton, so I didn't really have a whole lot of opportunities. Right. And then once I got to Prince George and I got the job with Shaw, it was a great job. Even just being a warehouse tech, it was just a great environment. It was like a family there.
Yeah.
And I met one of my best friends, Kevin, who used to be in the producer role before I got there.
Okay.
And I would talk with him a lot. I was always very interested in what he was doing.
Yeah.
As far as community television goes. And,
yeah.
We became good friends, and Shaw was very. They were very good in allowing people to kind of explore other avenues within the company.
Yeah.
So every now and then
to go up the ladder, right?
Yeah, or just try something new. Like if you just wanted to try something new, like they would give us the opportunity to shadow other departments, and of course. Obviously, I'd want to shadow Kevin because he was doing pretty much what was pretty close to my dream job.
Right.
So yeah, I shadowed Kevin. I started learning the ins and outs of camera work and production, and then one day he got the opportunity to move up to Winnipeg to be a supervisor, and
okay. So
the role opened up, and he just suggested I go for it, and it was pretty scary because I have not received any formal education to do this kind of work. Right. So I felt like I was taking a huge risk jumping from, stable warehouse position to something that I have not done before. Yeah. And that's pretty much, I just fell right into it. The benefit that you had is you kind of shadowed Kevin already somewhat. And so when did you get into that role? I think that was, I want to say it was near the end of 2018. I think. So just at the time that we got involved with you. Yeah, I think you were one of my first contacts, actually. Oh my goodness, can you imagine that? Yeah. So then just for our guests that are watching and from around the world, Shaw is a television presenter, really, right? But what would you call the business model of Shaw? Well, Shaw's like a telecommunication company. They're they do cable and internet, but we're mandated to have a certain amount of community access programming on the channel.
Okay, and so just for our guests to understand it that are around the world, so it's internet, and so there are a number of those kind of companies around Canada, and around BC as well, and then Shaw started out not all that long ago, because I still remember that local television and internet. Including telephone and cell phones, was all the same company. Telephone BC Tel, I think it was called then.
Yeah, well, I think we've always had a pretty. Shaw's always had a community access component. It's just been called different things over the years.
Right.
It would start off as Shaw TV, and then it got a rebrand to
When did it all start? It must have maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, because it started when I've been here now 60 years. And
yeah, I think you're about right. I don't know the specific date, but
it started out very local initially, and then some companies bought each other, and gradually Shaw became quite an organization.
Yeah.
Mainly in Western Canada?
I think mainly, yeah.
Yeah. And then only recently it was acquired by Rogers Television, which is the national one. And so now under the name Shaw is still there, but the organization is pretty much the most dominant private, public, non-governmental organization in Canada, right?
Yeah, I think they're definitely getting there for sure.
Yeah. And so then, in your role, the other thing that they do, what Shaw did, and just talking about Shaw now before the acquisition, but we got bigger and bigger. When they were in communities, they had this community spotlight. Is that what it's called?
Currently, it's called Shaw Spotlight.
Yeah. And so the objective there is to interact with the community on different things. Maybe explain what it is, what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So we're a community access television station. So what that means is we give the community access to our studio, to our equipment, and then access to the airwaves, essentially.
Yeah.
So the community, anybody from the community can come in with an idea for a show or a story to tell, and we would give them all the tools that they need to put that on TV.
And, but again, goes back to my experience way back in 2018 when we were invited to do that. Obviously that's all very complex equipment. That what Shaw also does or did is that they provide the technical side of things and help people in preparing the technical and the presentation side of the presentation that people want to make, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of I wouldn't call it a motto, but we're very passionate about giving people what they need. And
right.
They might just need everything. They might need the equipment. They might need every technical aspect, the editing, the shooting, or we can teach them how to do it, and maybe one day they just want to do it themselves.
Right.
We're really good at allowing people to break off and do their own thing. Like there might come a time when an access producer might not need us anymore. Right.
Yeah. And we're a good example of that, right?
Yeah.
So when we started thinking about that, somehow we got in contact with Shaw, and then subsequently you, at the time, you were new in your position as an incoming producer, and we talked about the show. The show that I was wanted to do is, because British Columbia in particular, one of the largest industries in British Columbia is the forest industry, and northern BC is very large in the forest industry, and I've been in the forest industry for my whole life, actually, born in Holland and then came here in 1965. Always loved the forest industry and started out as a cleanup man, lumber piler, and it's part of my passion, especially as it relates to Canada and BC. And I'm very involved in the organizational part of the Council of Forest Industry. And, so I always felt that people didn't know, respectfully, all that much. It was a lot of mystery in the forest industry that people didn't fully understand. And I thought it was maybe an opportunity for me to talk about the forest industry and all the things that that I thought were what made it drive the industry, and where the opportunities were, where the past was the present and the future, and so set up a program around that, and I called it the History of the BC Forest Industry.
Yeah.
And so the first show we did, and they were in half-an-hour segments, because Shaw is using them, and for the people locally know that already, is that on Channel 10 is Spotlight, and there they have these segments of a number of shows, and so we did, I think, 33 shows.
Yeah.
Altogether.
Yeah, it was one of my longer running shows, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fun to make. It was one of my first. I would say you're my first new studio production that we've done.
Right.
We've had when I took over the role, I obviously inherited all the other Access programs that we had, and I think you were my first brand new one from scratch.
Right. Yeah. And so what we did is then, under your guidance, is we invited guests, and I would interview them, and basically have dialogue like you and me do now, in talking about the forest industry in particular. And then the next thing that obviously happened is, we became very comfortable in the relationship, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so that kind of created a situation where you could no longer, it restricted you in terms of the things that you could do because of COVID. And so we then had to find a different way of doing it ourselves. And I think somewhere around 2000, we started doing our own and saying, maybe we should do our own. And then developed this particular setting, and became then, through circumstances, forced us into the position we had to learn from you and then kind of go on our own. And since that time, what has also happened is that our shows are shown on your program, Spotlight, a lot of times at 9 o'clock in the evening right now that I see.
Yeah, I think we actually have, I think we have 2 time slots for you now. I think we do one earlier on in the day too.
Oh yeah. But what time on the day, or offhand?
I wish I knew off the top of my head.
I know it's 9 o'clock is the one. But it's always interesting because, and I've seen some of our shows, even the ones I did with you on YouTube, and I said, well, how did they get here? And some of them, I think the one that I saw, then the first one that I did with you, and then I saw, the other day I didn't open it, but I saw one that was number 6 or number 9, and we did a total of 33. And what is so interesting about it is because they are still very timely, because the history doesn't change, and a show that was done maybe 4 or 5 years ago is still very much the history that we then talked about it. But for me, I had to acquire the skills to really get myself ready for becoming a podcaster.
Yeah.
And podcasting really was not known then all that much.
Yeah, it really exploded recently, especially because of COVID. Like, everybody started making a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to break out into that space, but you've done it.
Yeah, and a lot of podcasts, start off and maybe last 1 or 2 or no more than, there's very few that go past 10. Yeah. And then the interesting part, we were just looking at potential other we've done now year number 147, and most of them are an hour, and we're going more and more international and wider our circle, which is very, very interesting. And then, as we said before, it started talking to Scott about it. I said to Scott, we have to find a broader circles, and Scott got a hold of saying, how can we find other people that are interested in us podcasting them or the other way around? And so he contacted Podmatch, Podmatch, and from them, from contacting them, we got as many as 150 requests for either being podcasted or we being podcasted by them.
Yeah, going to keep you very busy, I think.
I would say I had no idea. And we looked at it, and I'm very proud of that, is that they also rank the people that are on there, I believe, and believe it or not, with all the podcasts that we do and all the activity that we have on our podcasting, they rated us as we are the top 5% in the world.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Amazing.
5%, I mean, it's so hard to get into the space, and it's so hard to be successful in the space. So to get in the top 5% is no small feat. Like that's incredible. Yeah,
we have had some of them, and you never quite know, but it's so attractive of some of the ones that we did. We did some on the forest industry. Bob Schutz has been a very popular one. Did as many as 500,000 views.
Wow.
And then we had a lady on Katie, we had over 800,000 views.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is keep things very interesting, but the other part about it is keep a variety of people that are interested on the broader sense to more and more different, in different areas.
Yeah, well, that was to me that was the coolest thing about you. As much as I'm always sad to see an access program stop,
Sure.
like when you stop doing the history of the forest industry. It's always sad to see one of those shows essentially cease. Like, it's still airing right now. We still do reruns.
Right.
But to see you branch off and doing more than just the forest industry just allows you to have just a larger umbrella. Like, you could still do forest industry stuff, like
which we do,
which is like one of your passions.
Yeah.
But just to see you branch off to anything, it's just really cool to see.
And the other one that's been very important to me is, I'm just going to put it, I'm also an author, as you likely know. I don't know, did you get any of my books?
I got those two. I don't have that one.
This one? You don't have this one?
I don't have that one, no.
No. Do you have this one then?
Yeah, I was actually at the...
I signed it for you. Yeah, I remember now. Sorry about it. So the one that, so I've done 3 books, and they're also behind me for my guests watching. ADHD Unlocked. And obviously I'm ADHD and proud of it. I call it a superpower, I was a late bloomer in terms of ADHD. I was 57 years old when I walked into a store here on 3rd Avenue, and then opened up this book, and the title on the book, not this one, but was Driven to Distraction. And it talked about ADHD, and I had never heard of it, and I thought, oh my God, that's me. It took me all that time to find out, and and obviously I bought the book, and then I started talking about it more. Initially, fair amount of stigma around it, and I was very conscientious of it because, it was looked at as a liability, a disorder, if you wish. And
definitely there's always been a really unfortunate stigma around those kinds of things. Like,
right.
It always bugged me, especially things like that. It's considered an illness, like especially like autism is considered an illness.
Correct.
Like
should not be.
No, my son is on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and he.
Did you get this book then? How old is your son?
My son is 12. Yeah.
12. I should get you. You didn't get this, right?
No, I don't have that one, though.
Yeah, I'm going to get you one, and I'll give you one for your son, too. if he is interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he, like when you say it's like a superpower, I mean, you wouldn't think that he was on the spectrum just considering how intelligent and thoughtful he is.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't know, but it's he's all the stronger for it.
Yeah. I was, and you probably have heard this on some of my other podcasts that I've had, and I talk about it a lot of times, is that, because I believe that is important, is that I failed grade 3. Nobody fails grade 3, and I failed grade 7 3 times, but and I kind of felt for a long time doing it, even when I came to Canada and I wanted to build a lumber mill. Started out with no money. I had the most amount of money that I had in my pocket was $25.47, but what I did have is attitude, passion, work ethic, and what will follow is success.
Yeah.
Is that, and then I started talking about it more about ADHD, probably in the last 5 years in particular, and then I thought I should write about it, and hence the book. And the book has become very, very popular.
That's
and so what I said already, as I said earlier, is that it's a superpower in my mind, and that if I look back at myself, failing grade 3 and grade 7, then I became a furniture maker, but I had this dream. I wanted to go to Canada, and second one, build my own lumber mill, and then I always kind of felt that even when I already had the mill, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're so successful." I didn't feel that way at all,
right.
Until I became knowledgeable about this, and then I wrote in the book in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am, and then I started talking about it more. Then I started writing about it, and virtually there's not a day that goes by that I not interact or meet people that have it themselves, or in their family, or among their friends, or in the place they work, or around the circle. Because I said, no matter what happens, you will find people that you cannot avoid it, that are ADHD or slow learners, and to understand them, because they tend to be a little bit different, but a lot of times they have certain qualities and they excel on. Yep. With my grade 7 3 times and my failing grade 3, I'm a very good writer, and I was very good at numbers, so, and the point that I'm making, obviously, I do something right in terms of entrepreneurially, because I'm a successful businessman. So, and then I'm an author, a podcaster, top 5% in the world, amazingly, and I have to brag about it a little bit.
That's okay, go for it.
And so, what I'm saying is basically, no, it's not a deficiency, it's not a liability, it's an asset. Yeah. Discover it, and even now I did a presentation somewhere, and there were about 20 people in the room, and there was 3 people that were going to do a presentation on lumber, and I was the last speaker, and the other 2 already talked about lumber. I didn't want to talk about lumber. I talked about writing and ADHD.
Yeah.
There were 3 people that, when I did that presentation, stuck up the finger and said they had ADHD. I had to diagnose, I think, 2 of them. They had never talked about it, and it's now getting to the point that sometimes I make a presentation and so many people know about it, and other ones say, "Darn, I wish I had it too." So, and I hope, at least in the things that I do, that by writing it and speaking about it, or including it into presentations and saying, no, it's not a liability, it's an asset, make it work for you.
Yeah, well, that's why books like that are really important, because I think even today, if a kid goes to school and they have trouble paying attention, they might just get sent to the principal's office, and you really got to learn how to treat them. You got to learn how to adapt to them, give them what they need so that they can succeed, rather than just pinning that as an illness and just sending them on their way.
And I think more and more what's happening, Jonathan, educators become more sensitive to it, because it's not only ADHD, but there are slow learners with people that have been exposed to trauma of some sort, or as you indicated, and other areas that are affected by it that makes them slow learners.
Yeah.
And if you are sensitive to that, then, and I believe more and more that will happen, where the educational system will adjust to recognizing that.
Yeah, it is getting better. Like I said, my son is on the autism spectrum, so he gets he has workers that work with him at school, and they give him what he needs. They kind of adapt the ways they teach him to kind of fit his situation, and I think that's really important. It gives them what they need to succeed, right?
Yeah, and for me, it's important to speak to young people, to speak to schools, and I bring it up to give them encouragement and saying, look at this guy, everything is possible, right? So, and you should not our individuals should not, neither should anybody else, look at it as a liability. Make it work for you and understand it. And that's why everybody should lead, not only my book, but other books like it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just want to talk a little bit more about, so now you are a production leader in Shaw. So you already technically have an interest in things before you started, and then all of a sudden what happened, although you shadowed Kevin, and then all of a sudden he got promoted, and all of a sudden there was an opportunity for you, so you took the leap. You had to learn a lot of stuff in a hurry.
Yeah, it was, like I said before, it was really scary. And to kind of backpedal a little bit, when I took the position, it was actually the second time it came available. The first time, and this isn't something that I that I admit without shame, but the first time it came up, I didn't take it because I was too afraid. Yeah. Right? Like it seemed like it was too big of a leap. Like I had a stable job already. Why would I throw a wrench into that when I'm already doing okay? Yeah. So the first time it was offered to me, because they told me I should take it, and I said I can't. I gotta want to take the chance. So I stayed in the warehouse role, which was the safe bet, I think. Yeah. And then I think a year or two went by, because I've been with I was in the warehouse for about I think just over 10 years. Yeah. So I was doing it for a while, and then a couple years passed, and the opportunity came up again, and it's like, come on, John, this time you gotta go for it. Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, I don't know what it was. I just felt like, I'll just take the chance. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Right, I might have to, it might not work out, I might have to go find a new job. But once I got in, Kevin, he was around for, I think he was around for maybe a couple of weeks. So he shoved as much knowledge in here as he possibly could. Yeah. And then at that point, it was just training via Google. Yeah. I learned a lot of what I know just researching online. Which is a great resource. Yeah, and then developing the confidence, right? Yeah. Well, it appeared to me you knew what you were doing, because obviously we were successful. I might have been pretending a little bit when I first met you. Well, that's good. Yeah, like I definitely could act confident back then, but if I did a good job at hiding it, like I was pretty. Before I came to Prince George, and even while I was here at Prince George for the first 10 years or so, like I was a pretty sheltered kind of I would consider myself an introvert, right? Right. So I wasn't really outspoken. I didn't really get outside much, No. Like I was just your typical nerd in the basement, right? But when I got this job, it sort of at this point, it's like I had to break out of my shell a little bit. Yeah. I had to change just how I interact with people, and I had to go out and meet new people. Yeah. Which was terrifying already for me at that point. I find this interesting that you say this, because that's the one part I talked about ADHD, but the other part that I had is that obviously I failed grade 3 and grade 7.
And then, at that age, at 14, I had to get coveralls and work became a furniture maker and worked in a furniture factory.
Yeah.
And I was relatively small, and I got coveralls, and then to my friends that were going to school, I looked like I was a laborer, so I was kind of in my own world. They used to all go on their bikes to the school. It was about 10 kilometers away, and I went there too, but I couldn't ride with them because I was a laborer, so it kind of bothered me. I always kind of felt that I was, because of the schooling, I was a failure. And I was a happy-go-lucky guy in a way, but when I came to Canada and started then with nothing, had 25.47 in my pocket at the Greyhound station, everybody said, you're so successful in all this. I was not very good in interacting. I could talk to people in my organization. Outside of that, it didn't come natural to me. I had difficulty with it. Being an introvert and living in my own world. And then by pure coincidence, and I was already 50 then, my ex-sister-in-law talked me into going to Toastmasters.
Right.
Have you heard of Toastmasters?
Yeah.
That changed my life. So she wanted me to go to the meeting. I said, well, what are they going to do that? I heard about it, and she said, well, I said, I'm not interested in going someplace, and they asked me questions. She said, no, they're not going to ask you questions. You just sit there and you just watch. I said, okay. So I went to the first meeting, and I was sitting there, and then in the middle of the meeting, somebody said, okay, John, tell me about it. I said, oh my God, I'll never go back here. So, and that's what I said. And then afterwards, I did go back the following week, and then I stayed with them for 10 years.
Wow.
And became a distinguished Toastmaster. That's the highest level of Toastmasters. There are probably 6 or 8 clubs in Prince George area. There's probably 500,000, 380, 400,000 people that are actively participating in Toastmaster clubs.
Right.
And the whole idea about Toastmasters is not to be only a good speaker, but become a good listener. Yeah. And thinking on your feet, and a number of other things that are helpful on a daily basis. The other part is becoming a good speaker, So you then go through the certain levels. So there's probably 500,000 people actively participating. Some go to different levels. The highest, as I said, was Distinguished Toastmaster. There's probably millions of people, probably 10 million people around the world that have been in some form or fashion participated in Toastmasters. Right. Less than 1% will get to the level of DTM. Don't have to, other than, for me, it was immensely helpful and it changed my life. That, and in combination with recognizing that I'm an attention deficit disorder, so then those two combined gave me then the confidence that I needed to feel better about myself. And then obviously, even for me, when we first started on, the spotlight, and with Shaw, was for me a new experience too. I although I was a good speaker and felt comfortable, but still it was a whole new experience.
Yeah.
Right now I'm a professional speaker and go to do different presentations wherever they are and feel comfortable out doing it. But then doing Spotlight for me was something new, because obviously you want to do it right. I was something that I liked, but and it's a very professional setting, which and it will go likely on television, so I'm very conscientious. So gave me the foundation, no question about it, with your help as well. And then obviously knowing who I am from ADHD perspective, and then being a distinguished Toastmaster. So it set me up for becoming one of the most active podcasters in Canada, if not in the world, in the top 5%.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's kind of the experience. But it was that in combination with Toastmasters, and then all the other things, as you well know. I have a number of companies, and a lot of times something that didn't come natural to me. I believe I'm a good communicator, and I have no particular anxiety. I did at one point, no different than you, because now you force yourself into doing the things that you did not feel comfortable about it, and then build self-confidence because you're doing an excellent job, obviously, and so thanks Shaw, that it help you forward in your life, so.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more thankful towards Shaw for giving me that opportunity, because before I started in the Shaw Spotlight role, like I said before, when I lived in Calgary, I didn't really do much. I was just kind of floating between fast food jobs and things like that, and I was never really passionate about what I did. And like you said, passion is very important in order to be successful. And when I got to the warehouse, I loved doing it. And it wasn't necessarily the work, it was just the people around me.
Right.
People like Kevin and, all the leaders at the time who were trying to convince me to go for this new opportunity.
Right.
And then once I took it and I realized what the job was about, I got out there, I started meeting incredible people like yourself.
Right.
I've worked with tons of people in the community. A lot of them have been on this show.
Right.
And then I really started finding a passion for something I was doing. It didn't feel like a job anymore.
No.
It just felt like something I wanted to do. Like, I like getting up and going to work. It's not, a lot of people will always text me on Friday saying, "Thank God it's Friday," and I'm like, it's already Friday to me.
You see, and I have to do this because when I hear you talking about it, because that's why I wrote this book about people like yourself, myself, and I do this. This is my third book that I just came out on the 19th, and you were at when we launched the book, and you got a copy of it. Is finding your passion, and then living the dream. Is that so many people, as you already said, are doing things, and I hear that frequently, is saying, "I hate my job. I don't like what I'm doing." I said, "Change."
That really bums me out when I hear people say that. And I was guilty of it too. Like, I worked in fast food. I did not like doing that.
No.
And when I hear people say, I hate my job, the fact that I was able to leave what I was doing prior, not because I hated it, mind you, but
no.
The fact that I was able to leave and do something different is the only reason I found what I was truly passionate about.
Exactly.
And so if you say you hate your job, I think you kind of owe it to yourself to just find something new. Try something different, something that you might not even think that you like.
Yeah, that makes it interesting in your case, because I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about that. That's precisely what the book is all about, right? It's saying that, you were an introvert, you were, through circumstances you came to Prince George, and then the impression that I got, it was not you that knocked on the door of Shaw and say, "Hey guys, you need me because I'm going to work in your warehouse and then I'm going to become a producer." No, but something happened that gave you the opportunity, and you said, I don't. So what happened?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think part of it was just how adamant my peers were in getting me to try it.
Right.
Like, they clearly saw something in me. Like,
right.
They knew that I would be a right fit for the role. It's just I needed to convince myself.
Right.
And I think it was just trying something new. I was feeling, it was maybe starting to get a little bit stale. Like I was doing the same things every day in the warehouse.
Right.
And I mean, if I get to produce stuff for TV or like some of the other things that I do for Shaw Spotlight, like create the documentary style features and things like that, that's pretty close to what I've always dreamed of doing as a kid, like being behind the camera, making movies, and that's pretty close to what I'm doing right now.
Right.
It's like quite literally almost my dream.
Right.
And so I mean, even though the first time the first time when I said no, I think the second time when they offered it to me again, like they didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like they said, oh, well, he said no the first time.
Well, they saw something in you, right? They saw that you had the commitment to the organization, for one.
Yeah, and I think even though I'm an introvert, I think when I'm put in situations of pressure, I think I perform very well. And I mean, going back to my interview when I first joined the Shaw team, like I think the interview went pretty well. And they must have seen something to me even then when they didn't even know me, because they held out for quite a while to get me on board, to get me on their team. Like they didn't know me, like they knew I came from Calgary and things like that.
Right.
But there was a big hassle because I had just moved, so I didn't have like BC ID, so I couldn't get a criminal record check, which is common for when you're getting a new job. So it took me several weeks after my initial interview. They could have just hired somebody else, and they didn't.
Yeah.
They waited for me. So they seemed like they were dedicated to me already, and they didn't even know me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, it just, I felt like it was very easy to be loyal to Shaw after that.
Yeah, but you said, I don't know if they even know me, but you had been there already for 10 years.
Oh no, I was referring to when I first got hired at Shaw. And, that was back in 2010.
Yeah,
and I had just moved. I got a whole bunch of interviews at other places.
Okay.
And Shaw was, I think, one of my last interviews, and I'm just glad that they snatched me first.
They saw something in you, right?
Yeah, which I'm very thankful for.
And so that so the other thing that appears to me, everything is changing, even like with Shaw, the televisions or the products that they produce and deliver to their customers, is that, how can you get people to use your product, because they are not the only ones. Chalice is probably one of their competitors, like in my place we got Shaw. And then in other places, is that where the competition lies between, obviously Rogers acquired Shaw, that makes them pretty large. So what are the challenges for them, other than producing a good product, make sure that they are the quality of televisions so much better than it was even 4, 5, 6. It seems to get better all the time.
Yeah, I mean, technology is always changing, and companies always have to adapt to what the needs are.
Yeah.
And right now, it's all about internet and social media and things like that.
Yeah.
And I can't really speak much towards the business side of what's important about companies like Shaw or
right. No, I understand that. Yeah.
But I think an important thing is the things they do outside of the business side of it, right? Like community engagement.
Yeah. It's very important to them, right?
Absolutely, and that's sort of what Shaw Spotlight is for.
Yeah.
Is we're out there in the community. We're trying to find amazing people, and there's no shortage of them in Prince George.
No.
And we
I know
find
they're
them
from podcasting, right?
Yeah.
147. My God, yeah.
Yeah. And we go out there. We find all these people in the community that might, they might like you and me at first, we're introverts. Like we might, people might not know who they are.
Right.
Like, so it's really up to us to find those people and let them tell their story to a broader audience. Get people to know them, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people. Maybe like me at first when I started with the job, is I just didn't know, I didn't really know what I was capable of or how special the things I was doing was.
Right.
So that's why I think it's important to get out into the community, and I think that's really important for a company to be successful.
And that now, especially when you're in the new role of being the producer, that you're going to be interacting all the time with different people about different topics, and then mentally you have to then kind of put it into a program that becomes interesting. The other thing that I find interesting about you, I could sit here and I said to you it's about an hour, plus or minus a few minutes here there. And yours, it has to be, the timing has to be right in that, because it will be fitted in to something later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think eventually down the line it might end up on the channel as well.
Longer channel?
I'm sorry?
You say it may, in the future, it may what?
Oh, I was just saying that eventually, because we air this podcast on the channel, it's something that you do 100% without my help.
Right.
Eventually, we usually, if they fall under an hour, we put them in a specific slot on the channel.
Right.
Usually a 1 hour block, and if they go over, sometimes I have to trim a little bit down, which is always super hard because I don't want to cut anything out of these.
No. Yeah, mine that you're using we're usually sitting around an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, they're usually about an hour, and sometimes if they go over 4 minutes, I think one of the hardest things about my job that I have to do is I have to watch every single episode. So I have to. It's really hard to take 4 minutes out of an episode where everything is important, right?
Yeah.
That's why I think it's definitely important that you have your YouTube channel and make sure that people know that they can find the full On the Brink experience on the YouTube channel.
Exactly. So if you look forward now, Jonathan, how do you look at it from your role? So somebody may say, well, Kevin has moved on, he's in Toronto now, so we have a slot available in Winnipeg.
Yeah. I think everyone's situation is a little different. Yeah. For me, I don't think. At first, when I moved here to be with somebody, and I had my son was born here.
Yeah.
And at first, it's funny that before I moved to Prince George, when I said I was pretty sheltered and I sort of was in my own little world.
Yeah.
I didn't know of Prince George until I was on my way to move here. I've never heard of Prince George before.
No.
And now I'm here. I got the job in the warehouse. My son was born, and at first it was I can't leave Prince George because I have a son here. But now I don't think I would want to leave even if I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
I've grown to know quite a few people here. People that I care about. A lot of people that I interact with, that I work with.
Yeah.
I think if the opportunity came up to do what I do somewhere else, I think I would probably figure out a way where I could do what I do here. I would maybe, even if I couldn't do the Shaw Spotlight thing forever, I think I would try to find a way to use everything that I learned doing that role.
Yeah.
And just do my own thing, because that's how much I want to stay here.
Yeah. And that is interesting. And then the other part, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the North is still growing very much, right. Including probably organizations like Shaw, are reaching out further and further. And I believe, the Prince George, when I first came here, it was in 1965, it was a boom town. There was no Shaw or anything like that.
Right.
And, and the question was usually, when did you arrive here and when are you leaving? It was a place where you made money and then you left.
Yeah.
It has changed. It has become an amazing community, an amazing region. I always, as you noticed, when I introduced Prince George, I said, you must go to northern BC. With all the lakes, in 50 miles you got 100 lakes or more, and it's beautiful nature and all those things. And I always say about Prince George and the region, it will grow at probably double in size in the next 20 years, 30 years, I would think.
Yeah.
And then it's still growing on virtually a daily basis, right?
Yeah. It's funny because when I knew that I was going to move here to be with somebody, I was a little hesitant at first, and I think I remember the one of the things that I told her that made me hesitant about moving here is like, there's only one movie theater here. Like, what am I going to do? Right? Like that's how sheltered I was, right? Like that's what I was concerned with is my movies and things like that. But once I got here, especially once I started doing the Shaw Spotlights thing, I started seeing all the other things I can do that are entertaining, like all the nature parks. There's so much to see in Prince George. Like because of the job, like you've had Jim Good on the show, and he's I was introduced to the Good Sir Nature Park. And there's a lot of places like that you can go to. Like,
amazing.
Like you can't get bored here, I don't think.
No, and then in the region, Barkerville, and going even further north, going east, going west, I always find in so much nature around here, and even still very close to the community. And obviously the community has changed now with the College of New Caledonia, substantially expanded, University of Northern British Columbia, behind us the brand new swimming pool, and the city has become and developed further and further, and attracting more and more people actually, especially after COVID, that say, I don't want to live in a big city with 500,000, 1 million people in a concrete building, and I want to get free, more air and healthy areas, so I think it's has huge potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the podcasting and in particular has become something that really didn't exist, even not when I first got involved with Spotlight, but it has kind of exploded, and it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. And it makes me wonder that if you really think about it, like when I first came from Holland in 1965, you would send a telegram and saying, I hope you're okay, I'm okay, need money, blah, blah, blah. And, now I can take my cell phone and I can push the button and I talk to somebody there, or I can get them on WhatsApp, or I can put them on a Zoom, and I have interactions with Zoom directly. It is changing so much.
Yeah, I think like we said before, when we got to change with the technology, because technology is not going away.
No.
So I mean, especially when COVID hit, people needed a way to stay connected with each other because you couldn't physically be near them.
Right.
And even with your forest industry show, it started in the studio. I think it might have lasted in the studio for maybe 6 or 7 episodes.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and then we had to start doing your Shaw Spotlight show virtually as well. We started doing that, and
exactly.
I'd be at home in my apartment doing your show with you instead of being at the studio.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to how companies can pivot. Before COVID, when you think about putting something on TV, you think about being in front of people, shooting them with a camera, being in a studio, actually interacting with people. So we started considering things like doing things over Zoom, or getting people in the community to shoot stuff on their own with their phone.
Exactly.
And some phones these days shoot very good quality.
Yeah, especially the newer ones, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that you can shoot broadcast quality stuff and throw it on the channel. And
it's amazing.
It is amazing, yeah.
Yeah. So you got this book, I'm going to sign one of this. Did you get this one?
Yep, I got that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you signed that one for me too. Yeah.
So I want to give you one for your son. So Scott will give me one. I'm doing another one that comes out next June. Living Young, Dying Old. And the whole book is about not so much how old are you in years, but quality of life.
Right.
The most important part is to be fit and healthy so you can enjoy, getting older. I'm going to be 83 on November the 1st, and and trying to stay fit. I'm still competing. I hope to compete again. I'm supposedly the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
Yeah.
So I'm going to compete again next year, and even at 83, and then hope to go to the Arnolds in 2024. That's the year that I'm going to be 84.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly doing something right, because you do not look 84. Like sometimes when you're on the TV at work, I'll be like, "How old do you think that guy is?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, he's like 60, 65."
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, he's 83."
Yeah.
Like, he's in his 80s, and it blows people away. Yeah.
And I think it is so. And to share that I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, but sharing lifestyles and some of the things that we can do to be sensitive to quality of life, so that one's coming out next year.
Awesome. I look
Jonathan,
forward to it.
it was my pleasure.
It was my pleasure too.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.